of you. That's for sure.
Can't go across them.
Good evening. Let's call the meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, it's June the 12th. We're here at the Civic Center for our regular monthly meeting. Let's please stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. McLaughlin.
Here.
Ms. Albrecht.
Here.
Mayor Kathy.
Here.
Mr. Wallace.
Here.
Mr. Putnam.
Here. Thank you. I want to take a moment and share some experience I had. Bill asked me to do this. I wasn't here last meeting, and I had been invited to go to Holloman Air Force Base with a group from Bay County. We went out there to get a bird's eye view of the Q9 Reaper drone, and it was quite an experience. We learned, as most of you have probably been following if you're keeping up with the news, the drone program is, Tyndall is in line to get 2 squadrons of drones in 2020. That's 24 units, bringing in approximately 1,600 people to new jobs, new airmen, new maintenance people, new technicians that'll be coming to Tyndall. We were shown sort of behind the scenes, I guess, of how that operates. It's a 2-man crew. It's an unmanned aircraft. It carries 2 500-pound bombs or 4 missiles. Has a range of about 500 air miles it can travel. It's the technology for a guy that has a flip phone blew me away. But it's a 2-man job. They're in cubicles, similar to Carnex, because they can be moved. Most of the drones at Holloman were stationed out of somewhere in South Africa. They did surveillance and live kill missions in Afghanistan and Iraq. But they were actually, the drivers or the pilots were at Holloman. So we got to talk with the airmen, we got to talk with the pilots, we got to talk with the technicians, all of the maintenance people. And it was just an experience to be able to see how that works. They fly roughly 30,000 miles, which is about 5 miles high, 30,000 feet, excuse me. They have 1 pilot and 1 cameraman, and they're sitting in like I say, what you would describe as a small Carnex. All of the equipment they have, like we looked at like 10 of them. Some of them are training, some of them are live. They work 24/7. They're on 3 shifts. They have as many as 30 drones in the air at a time. The guy said there may be one over Mexico Beach. I said, well, probably is. If you think they're not looking around, that's what they do. They're designed for obviously unmanned aircraft to do missions that they never indicated that fighter pilot was going away, but these they can get very they can have at 5 miles high, they can have facial identification. So and that's what they do. They're direct hit type missiles or bombs, and we flew out there on a CK-130 tanker cargo. Got to see them refuel the F-22 in the air. We got to move around. The guy said this was a 1959 plane, and that sort of bothered me. But it was one of 2 130s that had not been retrofitted. It was the original cockpit, and we sat in there with the rest of the cargo. So, but it was, Colonel Hernandez sent out some invitations for people. There was about 30 of us, and it was a wonderful experience to see. And I think Tyndall is, they're very much excited, and our area will definitely see some influx of people when this thing gets going on. So the Q9 Reaper drone is what it's called, and it's Tyndall is very excited, and Bay County is very excited to be able to get these additional folks in here. It's the, I guess, the cutting edge technology. So I wanted to pass that on. Bill, you have anything?
No, sir.
No.
Nope.
Nope. Citizen comments. Yes, sir. Ma'am, it doesn't matter. Come on, Connie.
I have an issue that I'd like to speak to you about, and this is about our beach. I've been on the Turtle Patrol for 14 years, and every Tuesday from May 1st until Halloween, I go out looking for nests, and then when it's time for the little babies to hatch, see which nests have hatched. Now, in all of those years, I have never seen the beach shore up quite as bad as it is now. And I don't know what type of new car, truck, tractor, I don't know what you're using to pick up the, empty the trash cans on the beach. Now, I don't know when you're doing it, because I was out there at 5:30 usually, and I don't see anything. But this vehicle is really making huge, deep ruts. I have some pictures if you want to look after the meeting. But they don't do justice to if you're standing right there and looking at the mess. Now, right now we just had the mamas coming in, but in about 60 days they're going to start hatching. And when the little babies hatch, they have all kinds of things that would try to get them, ghost crabs, and they'll drag them down into their holes and anything else that's around. There's no way they're going to make any fast progress to get to the water, having to go down in these deep ruts and then back up. So and the second thing that's happening, and this has been brought to Philip's attention several times, they are riding in the dunes. They come by the garbage can, and instead of getting down a little bit and going to the next one, they just stay right up there, and they're tearing up the dunes. So I wanted to make you aware of what was going on, and this has to be corrected within the next 60 days before the baby starts hatching.
Are we using different equipment than we have in the past?
Using nothing different today than we have been for a long time. I've talked to Philip about the dunes thing that Connie mentioned. We're not tearing up the dunes. What's happening is the dunes are shifting a little bit. Our trash cans are in the same location now that they have been for years, and it's the dunes that's shifting, and we're not making our adjustment. So I've talked to Philip to take the trash cans and move them more towards the beach, so we're not going to hamper that anymore.
Then we'll move the cans, try to get the traffic out of the way, and then if we're using, all I've ever seen is a tractor and a flatbed trailer with a dumpster on it.
Right.
And that's what we're still using.
Correct.
But that will not correct the deep ruts.
But are they, so you're saying that they're different this year than in past years?
Yes, they are.
Much deeper.
All right, I don't know what else we have
Or-
to do.
Let me ask a quick question. Connie, if the trash cans, from what your observation's been, if the trash cans are brought down closer to the water, they would be then driving closer to the water. Do you think that would, with the same equipment, that the ruts would be quite as bad, or would that?
Well, my concern is the equipment.
Yeah, I understand. My question is, though, if they moved it closer to the water, because I know you get up further from it, it's sandy
Yeah.
and soft and stuff. Closer you get to the water, do you think that would be a help as far as the depth of those tracks?
No, I don't, because that's all sand, even if you move the trash can.
Okay.
If they went to the trash can and then would come down the side instead of going straight, that would solve the problem as far as getting into the ditches. That will not solve the problem tearing up the beach the way it's being torn.
All I know to tell you is that we should, I mean, we're using the same equipment, it's the same stuff I've seen for years. I don't know, maybe as the beach got softer. I don't know.
Well, I've never seen it like this before, ever.
We might could drag a drag behind it, like they do on the baseball.
Yeah,
field.
there you go.
I mean,
Well, why don't we just monitor that, let Philip know that that's been discussed, and let's see if we can't come up with a more workable solution.
Thank you.
Sure thing. Bobby?
Bobby Powell, 215 Kim Cove. I own a piece of property, 102 29th Street. I hope all of y'all got my letter I left in your mail.
We did?
I did.
I would love to hear the answer to my two questions. This trash bin was rebuilt on the right of way. At the time he was rebuilding, at the start of it, I asked him to wait and see the city. I was told by the city administrator that ordinance could not just be changed by a code enforcer or even by the city administrator. Now, in the ordinance, it states, Chapter 51 states that commercial, unless expressly approved, refuse garbage, blah, 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 could not be stored on the right of way. If it was specially approved, I would love to be able to see who approved it and in writing. To me, specially approved is not a code enforcer telling you that you can rebuild it back on the same right of way. I'm a tax-paying citizen. I have my much rights as the person that's building this building. There's room for it been put in a different place. He parks his Jeep where it could have been put. It would not have been an eyesore for me, my property, or the property I'm actually trying to sell. Now, at the time of the beach problems we was having, I was told by the council, you had to go by your ordinances. Why have an ordinance if you're not going to go by it? Why even suggest what y'all going to propose ordinances now if you're not going to go by it? So please give me an answer.
Okay, does anybody, maybe you want to address that?
Sure I can, Your Honor. Give me a second to get a picture up here if you don't mind.
Okay.
There's the offending property right there. What you see where the arrow is where the old trash rack was. No question that was an eyesore. When the owner of the Caribbean Coffee came and wanted to get his trash rack replaced, we could not put it any further back than what it is because that whole area behind all of these buildings and the area right in here, even though he does park there, is a stormwater swale. And if it's dry as a bone, nobody has a problem. But if that trash rack would have been pushed back, the employees of the Caribbean Coffee would have to walk through water to get to the enclosure. Our sanitation guys have to walk through water to pick up the trash. And the useful life of that enclosure would be greatly diminished by it being laid into a watery area. So we do understand that following the ordinance is incumbent upon us to do, no question about it. But the ordinance should have some exceptions so we can have some leeway in certain things like this. And so what I was going to discuss during my administrator's report this evening was the fact that we really need to get some sentences added to our ordinances to give city staff and the city council some discretion to make decisions that are impossible to enforce. There's a lot of racks out in the right-of-way. There's a lot of racks in the front of some properties because they don't have a rear or a back. And so because of that, we are violating the ordinance in well over, I can't say 100, but at least close to it, properties that cannot comply with that ordinance. So it's incumbent upon us to make that change.
And that's gonna be part of what, is that something you're gonna bring up later on?
That's what I was gonna bring up, but I thought I just did. You know, I wanted to get the council buy-in, whether you wanted to get that language added to the ordinance or not.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
let me comment, because I don't think you were there when we did it. We had, you know, an ordinance that we backed out, rightfully so, garbage ordinance, that the city, it was put in place and the city didn't like much of what was in there. But there was one paragraph in that ordinance that kind of addressed the issue of trash racks where people, or places where people just couldn't put their trash, that if my memory serves me correct, we could probably pull it and take a look and maybe hopefully work
Let's
from it.
do this, because it's citizens' comments.
Okay,
Let's defer any discussion until we get to, because if we're gonna discuss this, we may as well discuss the issues of the trash racks in general, even though this is built. So while we're gonna bring that up,
Can I say one other thing?
excuse me,
Can I say one other thing?
yes, you may.
It could have been built where it could not have been in that waterway and still been on their property instead of on the right of way. It could have been built. It was not built because the gentleman would not even stop long enough to see. When you went up there and gave permission,
Bob.
after you told me, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, we're gonna get, we're gonna.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I hate to say this, but I'm Jackie Pollard, and I live at 215 Kim Cove, and that is our property. Now, I understand what Mr. whatever, Mel, is saying, but they built the garbage can to where the enclosure, they built this enclosure where the opening where all the garbage throws on the ground is facing our porch. All they had to do, if they had to build that garbage can out there, they had to face it toward those cars, face it toward the beach side. We wouldn't be looking at garbage. You don't understand, when we go over there and we sit on that porch, you're looking at nothing but garbage all over the place. That's where the bears ate. That's what they loved about this whole place. So I'm just telling you, as far as what you're saying, that it had to be built because of the water situation, I can assure you that that garbage can could, if it had to be built there, did not need to face our porch.
Ms. Pollock, is there a back on that
It's
enclosure?
not, oh yes, all the way around except it's open toward us.
It's open.
It's open.
Yeah, toward us.
Open it.
Okay.
you have a new picture?
I do not.
Are there any other citizens' comments? Now, remember, we're gonna discuss this, we're gonna, yes, citizens' comment. If it's relevant to this subject,
Diane
we'll do it
Kenny,
again. Yes, ma'am.
233 Kim Cove. I understand exactly what they're saying because I've been sitting on their porch looking at the garbage. But I do have a suggestion. I understand what you're saying about the water. Could you not build it up on some kind of platform and let the water flow under if that's the situation, and build a ramp so that the people could walk up that ramp to deposit the garbage? I mean, it seems like this would be a pretty simple solution. Just an idea.
Thank you. All right, I saw another hand. Come on up.
My name's David Kaiser. I'm the owner of Caribbean Coffee, and I am the offender, apparently, of said garbage rack. I brought some pictures of the rack to the council to see in its finished state. I also have a couple of comments to make. This is not the finished product. I was given 30 days to repair the rack. I understand that. I do not own that rack. That rack is owned jointly by multiple parties that own those buildings there. I took it upon myself to rebuild the rack because I'm the majority user of the rack. And I thought it was my duty as the majority user to put in more effort than the others, plus the fact one of the owners is trying to sell the building, the other owner does not live in town. So I took it upon myself to rebuild the rack, and yes, if we were to put it in a wet spot, the garbage men would not be able to, even if it was raised, the garbage men would not be able to service it if it was raining and wet. So we put it back in the exact location it had been for the past 13 years. Is that the proper location? I don't know. I just know that it's been there for 13 years. That rack was there before the Pollitz bought the property next door, and it did not seem to bother them at that time. Now, I did the best I could to rebuild it as neatly as possible. It kind of matches the existing fence, and it is not a finished product. The reason you can see through the gap now is because the gate has not been installed. The reason the gate has not been installed is because I was disturbed on the day that I was trying to do the installation and finish it. I work 6 days a week. I have 1 day off to work. That is Mondays. 2 of the Mondays during last month rained. I could not work on those days. I was left with 1 day to finish the task that I would have been given 30 days by the last code enforcer to do. I was doing my utmost to finish it in that time period. I did not succeed apparently because I did not put the door on it. I was trying to design that where it would be bear-proof, hence the opening size, and I have made it so I can put a top on it and still be serviced by everybody in that area, including the garbage men when they came to empty the garbage. I don't know what else I could have done.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other citizens comment?
One more back.
Oh, okay.
Just a point of clarification.
You're going to have to come up here.
Okay. Big Web 412 Leicester Drive. Just citizen comment about the fire services in Bay County. I know it's on the agenda. Would that be brought up?
Yeah, that's coming.
I'll wait till.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments? Okay?
One.
Yes, come on.
Bill, would you please speak into your microphone? Thank you.
No.
All right, moving on to consent agenda, we have one set of minutes from the May 22nd meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Any additions or corrections? Any opposition?
No.
Let the record reflect 5-0. Jeff, you're up.
Good evening, Jeff Britton with Dewberry. Short report on some of the projects we have going on right now. The most active one is the DEP grant Sand Bypass Beach Restoration Project. Activities that have been completed this month: the environmental assessment is complete. The joint coastal permit application is complete and submitted to DEP. So we're in kind of wait and see mode now until we start getting some feedback on our proposed approach. Design work and getting to that point is about 75% complete. So, the Mexico Beach paving and stormwater improvement projects, 23rd Street, 33rd Street, and Canal Parkway Extension. All the reviews are complete with DEP. We're just waiting on them to finalize the permit and issue it. They've confirmed that everything's complete. It just takes them a while to get it out the door. Last one is the Parker Park moat fill estimates. We should have some information, timeline, and estimates on costs for that probably next week. I think we have all the information we need. We just need to compile it into a list and make it so it's easy to understand. So. Any questions?
Are you dealing with the approval for us to finished paving by the canal
Correct. That's the Canal Parkway extension. It's one of the 3 paving projects. It's
that we've
waiting
been
on DEP
waiting
permit.
on and waiting on and waiting on? You know, we're right into the middle of the season nearly. And we would have liked to have gotten this done before the season started, so.
Agreed.
But the government doesn't always understand that.
No, they don't. Did we get something from you on the Parker boat?
Not yet. That should be ready to
But I mean,
present
did
to you
you
next week.
submit us a proposal to do that?
No, we haven't. One of the meetings a month or so ago, you just asked us to look at putting together some cost estimates, material quantities to actually fill the portion of the moat we're talking about. And that's going to be in the range of 10,000 cubic yards or so, depending on how deep the water is there and the muck below it. So
How much does it cost per cubic yard to fill that in?
down here, probably about $12 a yard,
And how many yards?
around 10,000,
So we can't
give or
put,
take.
we can't, in the bottom of that pit, we can't put broken up concrete and so forth?
You would have to have it permitted as a C&D landfill, and I don't think that'd allow us to do that.
That sure would be a lot cheaper. I mean, it's gonna sink 4 feet anyway. I just don't, it doesn't make sense to me.
Any questions for Jeff? Could you ask about the paving? I mean,
Yeah, I followed up with Rolando Gomez last week, but I haven't heard
Is he doing
anything.
that permit too?
Correct.
Okay.
How long has he had that request?
We submitted 4 or 5 months ago.
4 or 5 months ago?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean,
Yeah, I
I
know.
think we all know that it's, they have their schedule, we have ours. So,
Yeah,
thank you, Jeff, appreciate
theirs never
it.
fits ours either.
Well, on that, just on that Canal Parkway thing, we've got to get a tractor or something down there. That when you
Yeah,
go
that's
off
right.
the pavement, if you could make a note for Philip or something. I would try to do something, and you knock your front end out when you go off that road down there.
That's true.
Thank you. Okay, Chief Kelly.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, council. Got a city report for the Mexico Beach Police Department for May of 2018. During the course of the month, the past 31 days, we had 422 calls for service. We had 3,811 building and security checks, 86 traffic stops in the past 31 days. We had 14 arrests, and the arrests broke down into the following categories: 5 driving while license suspended, 7 drug arrests. During the course of the drug arrests, they consist of crack cocaine, marijuana, methamphetamines, and 11 different types of controlled substance, being pills for medication. 1 driving while under the influence, 1 disorderly intoxicated person. We had 23 uniform traffic citations issued and 59 warnings for a total of 86. We had 8 vehicle accidents, 1 disorderly intox from the vehicle accident, 56 information service reports. We responded to 2 distressed swimmer calls, 8 animal complaint calls, some of which were on the beach, which is a beach ordinance violation. 15 medical responded for injury calls, 1 life-threatening medical call, 13 noise complaints in various locations in the city. We responded to 14 reckless driving calls. Of the beach violations, 7 were animal-related, and as I mentioned earlier, 7 drug arrests. We also had a golf cart incident in one of our streets where some juveniles were playing on a golf cart. One of the juveniles was flung off it and ran over by a juvenile that was under the age of 16, operating a golf cart without a license. So a crash report was completed on that. I did follow up with the status of the 10-year-old that was a juvenile, and he did not sustain any major life-threatening injuries. Visually, it looked a lot worse. It could have been a lot worse, but fortunately for himself, he was able to, or is in the process of recovering from the injuries. But other than that, that's what I have for the month of May.
Questions for Chief Kelly? Okay. Any citizens? Thank you. Dan?
Yes, sir. We've also picked up calls last month. We hired all our full-time staff. They've started now. I went to a training to help us improve our water capability response now that we're certified as a USLA agency, which means we can make open water rescues. I went to a watercraft operator course so we can get our guys spun up. That's that free Sea-Doo we don't pay for. It's a lease we have to use for water rescues. And then also we have that UTV we use for the beach that the volunteers raise the money to buy. So those are our two things, and we're just getting everyone certified on that stuff so they can improve our water response. Most of our city, 3.5 miles is along the Gulf of Mexico. Other than that, everything's looking good with the fire station. It's almost finished. Last month, you guys formally requested Bay County to consider implementing their MSTU and taking over fire protection at my recommendation. So far, we've got them everything they need to know. They have another meeting next week on the 19th, and we'll know further from there. Basically, I've just given them all the information I can. It looks like a good deal for us, but that doesn't mean they'll take it over. So I know in the past, a lot of citizens asked why the county didn't help or why we didn't do it millage-based, and this solves a lot of those problems. I think it would be a good thing for the citizens of Mexico Beach, but we're kind of at the county's mercy as far as if they think it's a good deal for them. So we should know more on the 19th. Other than that, everything's looking good, and we're on track to solve our ISO regression, and even if the county chooses not to consider that option, we're still on track to continue with whatever we need to do to fund the fire department to keep a good fire protection rating.
Vic, did you hear all that?
I did.
Okay, just want to make sure. All right, any questions for Chief Simmons? Thanks. You got anything for Philip?
The only thing that I will say for Philip in his absence is that the utility lines at the 36th Street Bridge that'll be dealt with later this year have been installed. They went under the canal, and we did that using an easement from the state for a temporary easement, and they're in that right of way. In a few months, that goes away. So what we got to do now is work on a permanent easement with the property owners there so that we can keep those lines there. Because the intent is, if those lines ever break or have an issue, we'll go ahead and attach the utility service to the bridge and get rid of them at that location. But in the meantime, we need to consider a permanent easement, which the temporary is going to run out here in a few months.
When you say the property owner, are we talking on both sides of the bridge?
On the north and south side, yes, sir. On the west,
Just those two property owners?
correct.
And we're, the line, we weren't at, we didn't have enough of our property to,
That is correct. Because others had used our property for their lines, i.e. the gas line.
how much of an easement are we gonna need? How much are we gonna ask for?
Well, because they're underground, they'll never even see the thing, so that's the issue. As for how many
Dig
feet,
it up, how much we gonna have to dig up?
How deep are they? Deep, aren't they?
I'm not at liberty to say because I have no idea. It's below the depth of the canal, 6 feet below that.
So we haven't talked with the residents yet.
We have not.
Okay.
Gotcha. All right, you're up.
All right. Your report for the month ending April 30th is attached. Just a few things I'm going to point out. You'll notice our revenue is significantly behind last year, and so is our expense. That is simply the canal project. Nothing to be alarmed about. Just that we had so many projects last year going on that it's tough to compare where we're at compared to last year. But overall, we're collecting just fine. On the second sheet, there's a couple of funds I want to point out. The boat ramp fund in the past 4 days has collected over $1,000 at the box down at the boat ramp. Snapper season's here. It says $66,048. There is the cooler expense that has to be transferred out of that yet that has not been, so there's roughly between 15 and 20,000 in that account. And the next one I want to point out is the water operating. You'll notice it's negative. This fund has to be watched every year, ever since 2013 with the USDA project. The alternate water source expense is coming out of that. I think we're okay. I think we're gonna be positive. It's just that reimbursement we're waiting for in that fund. So don't be alarmed with that one. And the last thing is the fire assessment. The collection of the fire assessment was due on the 31st of May. We have collected over 80% of the revenue as of today. 411 parcels of the 2,471 parcels have not paid. I'm working to draft a reminder notice. I don't want to go directly into the non-ad valorem assessment to the tax rolls yet. I want to give one reminder notice and then proceed from there. The total amount outstanding is $121,803. So I'm hoping we can collect some. We've had phone calls already of people who said they just simply forgot. So I'm hoping it brings in some more revenue on that side. Other than that, that's all I have.
Question for the clerk?
Nope.
Anyone in any of our citizens?
Thanks for the update on the boat ramp. That's interesting how much we collect.
It's going to be a lot in the next couple weeks.
Okay. They'll go ahead.
I always prepare a building permit list so you can look at that. As you can see, we're up to 22 homes so far permitted this year. We've kind of hit a slow pace. You know, by all means, look at January, we had 13 permitted. But the reason we've slowed down is that means all those people, those permits, are working on those homes right now. They don't have the time to do anything else. So they have kind of slowed down, so that's okay. Another couple items. One of the goals of the fire department was that at which time we have a full-time certified fire department with qualified employees, the intent was to go ahead and no longer have uncertified volunteers. Because as you know, part of this ISO rating is dependent upon us having 4 firefighters, certified firefighters, show up to each fire. If you have an uncertified firefighter showed up, you don't get credit for it. So they actually do us no good whatsoever. So the intent is that at this point to go ahead and cut loose our uncertified fire volunteers. There are some certified volunteers that, of course, will remain on the force. Also, you can see by the emotion in the earlier presentation, trash is a serious business in Mexico Beach. It's a basic service, but nonetheless, it comes with a lot of emotion. And we saw that a couple summers ago when we tried to change the ordinance a little bit. Had quite a bit of pushback, and so we changed it back like it was. The ordinance is clear. You can only have your trash racks and trash cans at the side of your home and the rear of your home. We have certain areas around town where that simply can't happen, like a townhouse in particular. They don't have a side, and sometimes the rear doesn't allow for any trash cans back there, so the only way to do it is to put it in the front. When we allow that, then we're going against our own ordinances. That's not fair to the citizens, it's not fair to us to willingly break our ordinances. So I'd like to request to the City Council to us to explore some additional language to the sanitation ordinance that would give either the Public Works Department, me, or the council, whatever you decide, to have some authority to make some exceptions to that ordinance. That would solve a lot of issues on the 37th Street. That would solve a lot of issues around town. We also have a number of trash racks that are next to the road. We would like to start taking care of pushing those back closer to the home. But again, even at their current locations, they are against the ordinance. So in that line of thinking, any questions, concerns about what might go forward? I've already spoken to legal counsel about helping us get some language together, so he knew it was coming. So are there any concerns that you might have for us to get away from?
No, I just have a question. So, on the block Oleander, where my garbage is picked up, and everybody on that block, and I think as far down as I think I can see, our garbage racks are right by the street, Oleander. So what you're saying is all of those racks have to be moved back? Or that would have to be included in the exceptions?
That's where the exceptions would come into play.
Okay.
The comment I was going to make earlier was if you look at that old ordinance that we pulled back, there was some language in there that gave Phil the ability to make decisions one-on-one with our citizens in these instances, and then that would have been recorded so it could be kept in records, kind of like a variance. And I believe it also said something if I didn't like what he said, then I could come in front of us. But it was strictly for those places that you're talking about, condos that don't have the ability to do anything. And I know we had some that people just didn't have the ability to put it behind, and they'd had them on front. That's so maybe that would be a place to look to start. I don't know.
I agree. I think like particularly on Pier Road, some of them can't put it in there, and they don't need to. I mean, they don't want a gate in the back, so they should be able to put it in front of the house. Now, that being said, I would like us to indicate an area, specific area, or what kind of enclosure, give them an idea of what we would expect kind of enclosure, so they're not just stuck out there in front and nothing kind of hiding them a little bit, if we could do that.
Definitely keep the part of the ordinance where it says screen from public view.
Yeah. I mean, we don't want it to look tacky or sloppy. We want it to look neat in those particular areas that they don't have an option.
We've been lax in enforcing ordinances having to do with garbage. Driving around today, I noticed probably 60% of the cans that I saw had no tops on them. They were full of cardboard, whatever. Yesterday it rained in them, which makes a 32-gallon garbage can could be 30, 40 pounds heavier than it should be, which is hard on the guys picking it up when they don't expect that day after day. And so I think it's just time for us to look at the whole schmear there and make sure everybody's on the same boat and can understand the simplistic idea of picking up garbage.
I have a concern about exceptions. They become subjective. We're going to try to write them all down. We're going to end up with some ordinance where you're going to try to say, here's what you can do in this situation. We'll be in. You said it well when you said there's passion about trying to keep our city clean. And I think that's really all I'm interested in doing. I'm not interested in writing some ordinance and a list of exceptions and try to figure out who can do what. And in this situation on 37th Street, some of those folks have created, they want us to change our ordinance because they don't want us to come get their can in the back. So it's, they tell us, change your ordinance because I can't do that. I disagree with that. I disagree that we're going to get caught, I fear, in trying to be a referee. If we just stick with what we have and we tell them this is what the ordinance is, they can bring the trash out to the side of the road like everybody else does on trash day. A lot of people do that. But when you start making a list of exceptions, for all we're trying to do is keep our city clean, I think we're gonna open a box of worms. I think it's gonna be, the administrator's gonna have, this is, just like you said, there's a wet spot there, we couldn't, your decision was to do that. 37th Street, the lady came to see me and said, I can't, there's no way I have to put my cans in the front, I don't want y'all in my backyard. And I told her, I said, well, then you need to make other arrangements. It's not us that needs to change. We have an ordinance that says this is what you do. Are there exceptions? There's exceptions to everything, but I don't know that we need to try to write them down. I would much rather enforce the ordinance, do some things. Oleander's never been an issue. That's some people's backyard, other people's front yard. It's a single street. It's not even recognized as it's an alleyway.
Thank you, that's what I call it. But those
Well,
that
that's
have, those that have an Oleander address correct me all the time.
Of course they do. Highway 98, we've got cans sitting out by once you start separating them from the house, they become an eyesore. And if we just went through and moved them back and tell the guys, take your drill and drill a hole in the bottom of the can so the water will drain out. People don't do that. I mean, I'm just saying, try to be proactive instead of trying to write it down for trash. There's some ordinance that you need to do that. But I'm going to be very leery of trying to come up with, here's how we're going to word it. And these can't do, and the lady that wants us to come in her backyard, then she can bring her trash out the road.
The only reason I
just see it
would
simple.
look at any exceptions and look at the Phil for doing it, it's his people that are out there actually picking it up. He'd have a better idea than you and I. And the only reason I would like to see anything we do, I'm not saying we want to necessarily, like you, I don't care if we put anything in, thou shalt not for this situation and that situation. I think it has to be common sense on the spot if it's really a problem. And I do think it would be better to be written down, because 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if we don't have it written down, we can have
Well, I
arguments.
think we do have it written down. See, that's what I just
Okay.
think it's, I don't know of, I just don't have any, this thing started with one thing in 37th Street, to my knowledge. I've never heard any complaints.
if he's gonna put a gate on it so all four sides are covered anyhow,
It's just in the
What
right of way.
difference
It's right
does
out
it-
by the road. It's gonna, what are you gonna tell the next person?
Well, where do we
I'm
put
just
it?
asking
I
you
guess
a
what we're
question.
asking, what I'm asking is, where would we tell him to put it if it's in the water? I don't want to be the one making the decision.
If
I
you
wouldn't
had
want
to
it.
exit, if you had to enter here and it were pushed back, now you're entering from back here. This whole thing sits in the right of way, every bit of it. It's on post. It's not something you just go out there and pick and move once a day. It's permanently attached.
Well, where would we, I'm asking where would we move it?
Push it back. Push it back so that you open the gate right here.
Are you trying to get it off the right of way?
Yeah, I think I think
So-
we should.
Is it in the water if we move it back?
Yes, it is. It's in a swell area. The city engineer can tell you what a swell is. Filled with water when it rains.
Okay.
So we have no other areas that the garbage pickup is in right of way?
Well, I've got a
Half the
residence across from my
town
house.
businesses place park on the right of way.
That's correct.
The swell, this seems, the swell is back here where you're walking. If you didn't have to walk back there and there was just a 2x4 slatted floor, the cans would be up off the ground, the gate would be here, the thing would be pushed back. It wouldn't be really any difference. Water would run right under it, except you would be walking. You wouldn't be in the swell.
Who told them to build it there?
I don't know. I don't know.
Code enforcement officer and I did.
Okay.
but you, from what I'm understanding, it was just replace it, get rid of the shabby looking one, replace it. So to me, that would be common sense if it's, and I know, Mrs. Pollock, you disagree with me, but I'm only referring to what I've heard. So if it's been there for 13 years,
Hadn't been there for maybe 7 or 8 years.
okay, so whatever. I mean, if it's been there for more than 3 or 4 years, so whatever, wouldn't you, I can understand where he would just assume that it'd be okay to put it right there.
What about the possibility of putting some kind of shrubs or something around it?
It's right in the right of way. It's right on the street.
Well, the problem
There's a
is,
lot of
Jackie,
them
we
that are on the right
we
of
have
way.
those situations occurring all over town where the garbage is in the
Well,
right of way. What?
If they want to be.
There's no other permanent structures in the right of way.
Business?
Sundance Realty on the other side of that same block is in the right of way. It mirrors that garbage enclosure. 28th Street. 28th Street. They were both built at the
Just a
same
moment,
time.
just a minute, just a minute. 28th Street, I'm just processing that. Sundance Realty, is that what you said?
Yes.
What do they have out there? Help me.
It's almost identical to the structure I built.
Well, all right, then I may stand corrected, that there's another one in the right of way. If it's a permanent structure, we all inherit, every council that has ever sat here inherits situations that have been there 5 years, 10 years, 13 years. When we have a chance to correct it, I just think that's what we should do. We didn't go, if we had just slowed down, had an opportunity to go look at it, and that opportunity did exist when this was being built. But we chose to just speed through, put it up, and now this is what we have to deal with. So personally, I'm for looking at getting it as far off the right of way as we can. And if there's one on the other corner, then I just think that's a liability to allow that to sit there and the city give permission to do that when there was another option. If there wasn't another option, then I might say, well, you know, this is just one of those things as businesses need to, but that's not the case. There were
So
definitely other options.
I would suggest that we do a citywide survey to see who all's on the right of way and how many places we've got to change, if there are more than one or two.
Residential and commercial.
I
Okay.
I I have a hard time, we do this quite often. When something comes up, even though it has been allowed for years, when something comes up, then all of a sudden we want to change things or situations for homeowners or businesses that were allowed years ago. I can understand that if we're saying, okay, we have to follow our ordinance, then we do it from now on. But why, after all these years, do we punish the people when it was accepted? That I have a hard time doing. And not forgetting about Caribbean Coffee or that one, but on 37th Street too, these homeowners chose not to have a gate, which is their right on their land. They didn't want a gate. So can they put their garbage on the other side of the fence? Probably not. And so they have to come to us and say, okay, we don't want to break the rules, we don't want to break the ordinance, but we don't want your people coming in our yard. We have a dog and we have a young child. They have every right to have a enclosed section in their yard, in their house. And so maybe we don't need to put any exemptions in our ordinance, but have them come to us personally, or come to Mel or come to Phil and say, this is what we'd like to do, and then bring it before the council with their pros and cons of doing it and why. I guarantee, go ahead. The lawyer's speaking.
I've been sitting here with a similar thought. If you don't want to change anything, you do already have a process you could use. You could use your variance process for this. It's probably more complicated and takes longer than what most people would want to do, but it's on the books. You could use it. It's specifically designed for unusual properties where it's difficult or unfair to make somebody comply with the regular rules.
I think that's what we need to do.
A common sense approach, I take it.
Well, it's not the quickest, simplest approach, but it's already on the books.
Well, I would hate to be Mel or any one person trying to make that decision. I think it would be better if we could have looked at the situation, if we had different opinions, come up with
that's
something
right. Just
that said, okay, and I would rather the burden fall on us.
Me too.
I mean, I'd hate to be Philip and Mel sometimes, because whatever decision you make,
you've got
gonna
five
be okay.
others that might not
It
like
may
it.
not, but I would
I
rather,
understand.
I would rather us take the heat than them.
I agree, and maybe the citizen can go before Mel and Philip and say, this is what the problem is, and then they bring it to the council, and the council makes the decision. I agree with you.
One of the problems has been over the years, we haven't enforced the ordinances. That's just a fact. You just look around. Some people don't do this, other people do this. And so if we just enforced what's on the books, a lot of this would take care of itself. But we haven't done that. Now, I understand, Caribbean Coffee had 30 days to get this done. He even got an extension because the weather was bad. But he was told by the code enforcement person that was okay at that time. Now, I don't know what other conversations went, but I mean, this is just the tip of the ice, it's just all over town, and I know some of you are sick of hearing this. I was in the garbage business back in Kentucky for a few years. We were picking up 55-gallon drums with handholds cut in them that got full of ice in the wintertime. That's what we were doing, and we'd done it for years. Well, 6 months later, we quit doing that, and we stopped doing it. And we required people to either have dumpsters or garbage cans. And believe it or not, after $400 or $500 worth of fines, they found it was necessary to do it our way. And so I think in a way, the city has been lenient as far as enforced, and the majority of the people that live here want to do the right thing. There's no doubt about that. Because so many of us put our garbage at the day they have pickup out to the street. and that just helps the guys if they moves along fast. It's great, you know? And I've told them, don't even take my garbage cans back. I'll take them back, but they still take them back to my fence. But what I'm saying is 75 to 80% of the people that live here really try and make an effort to make things look better, and they're proud of, and then it's that 8 or 10% of the people that are a pain in the rear all the time. Well, we just need to slap them down every once in a while. Sorry, Peggy.
You through?
I'm done.
Okay. Yes, we'll entertain comment. Yes, just come, yeah. Come.
I would like for this council to start paying attention to what our ordinances are. You're always wanting to go live in the past, you're always wanting to make exceptions, and it's time for that to stop. I want you to read the ordinances, and I want you to uphold them. And there isn't a person, I don't think, in this town that can't put their garbage can someplace besides out by the front street. When I first came here, I thought, well, look at this city. They're so proud of their garbage. There was garbage cans all over the place. And thanks to our mayor, we finally got the garbage cans off of the front of the house. And even if you're in St. Joe Beach, look at all those condos. They have commercial pickup, but they take their cans and they put them back. And there isn't any reason why we can't. I take my cans out and I put my cans up. I've done that I'm 75 years old. Now, unless I'm crippled or something, I can call City Hall and tell you, hey, look, I'm disabled and I can't do this. But other than that, you don't want somebody in your backyard, well, then you come get your can, put it out front, and then put it out. Or else, I don't know what you're gonna do with your garbage.
And I won't be on the record. The intent of this meeting was not to open up the garbage. I want everyone to know that. I want the people watching this on TV to know that. Okay, come on.
Hello again.
Hello.
Hello. So, Alicia Mosley, 105 South 37th Street. I'm one of the townhomes that has that trash issue. So, I'm going to give these to you. This is where we put our trash to try to make people happy. Okay? Go, y'all can share.
Thank you.
So, let's discuss this. All right? Now, let's go back to the beginning, 1984. Great year. Okay, those townhomes were built. The gates were put in. Why? For utility purposes, for power, for telephone access, and specifically a septic system. Great, perfect reason to have gates. Excellent, that was over 30 years ago. Those septic tanks were taken out in 1999. Trash is technically not considered a utility. It is a sanitation, okay? So I think people for the past 30 years have gotten used for people trotting through their backyards, dragging trash through their backyards. That worked then. It's a new day, ladies and gentlemen. There's new people coming in. I sat at a city council meeting where you guys told me that in the last year, you've had more people move in and buy residence here than the last 7 years combined. That's huge. And that's such a great growth that we have here at Mexico Beach. But to do that for these new residents, including myself, I moved here about 3 years ago, they're new voters. It's a time for change. This is a time for moving forward in a positive direction to come together as a community. And I'm not asking for exceptions. I'm asking for a better way to get it done. And telling me that I need to put my trash in the back, I'm not lazy. I'll put it in back. But I am not going to drag my trash through my home that is unsanitary and that is right out disgusting. And I doubt anybody in this audience, even on this city council, would drag trash through their home. Okay? We have done a great deal to try to keep the peace. We have bought lattices to put them from view in between the buildings. Those buildings are private property, and we were asked by that corner unit to remove them on both corners because we're in the middle. Okay? I'm also going to throw something else at you. Let's say there's 4 units in one of these buildings. The 2 corner units have the power. I know a corner unit across from me that's taking their gates out for security and safety purposes. Okay, I had an incident with my 6-month-old at the time, and people walking through my backyard, trespassing, poking their head through the gate while I'm sitting there playing with my 6-month-old. I don't know those people. I don't know those renters. I have no idea if they have some felony or are going to come up and snatch my child, or that master bedroom is right there in my backyard. What if I want to have an intimate moment with my husband? Or maybe it's my God-given right to walk naked in my own home. So we took those gates out, and we were in our right to do so. So what we have done is try to take steps to put them on the side we were asked to move them. Well, let's build a big bin in front of our home. Well, if you know those townhomes, we don't have a lot of property. They're boom, boom, boom right next to each other. Well, if that corner unit takes out their gate, which they're going to do, what if that other corner unit takes out their gates? That means those two people in the middle, what are they going to do? Drag their trash through their houses? Is that the best we can give our citizens? Let me throw something else at you. There are only 3 trash bins on Pier View, on the pier, 37th Street, right? That is a high traffic area, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, you've got a really great community and city here. People want to come and visit. They're up and down there. They're throwing trash away. 3 bins is not enough to cut it. Those trash cans get piled up every single day. And when we have storms, what blows around 37th Street? Diapers, women's pads, trash all over our streets. And where does it end up? It ends up in our ocean. That's our home. This is our home. And we're talking about trying to keep it clean. Well, let's keep it clean. Let's find a better way. I'm not asking for an exception. I'm asking this council for a better way. Maybe that is putting dumpsters across the street, and we don't even have trash cans, and it's a community 7th Street dumpster, and we all dump our trash there. Okay. That's also going to help with, you had mentioned, I think it was Mel or someone, last city council meeting. If you have the dumpsters, well then other people are going to use them as well. Well, that's the point. It's to keep our community clean, 37th Street clean. So I'm not saying I have all the answers. Maybe we add something to the ordinance. I think that's a great idea. Maybe we add some dumpsters. That's a great idea. But to tell me to drag my trash through my home is not an answer. What the city council is experienced and knowledgeable as you guys, I really hope we can come up with a better solution that will suit everybody. Okay, I'm not asking for just me, but Al, you mentioned being proactive. You got people moving in. Let's be proactive. This isn't just about me and our trash cans, which obviously are not like eyesores, but we're flexible. We're willing to want to try to do the right thing, but again, bottom line, asking for a better way. Plain and simple.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Actually, looking at this picture,
Yes, ma'am.
you are the closest thing to being on the side that you could possibly be.
I am on the side of my
So,
residence.
You're
according to
right,
the
you are on the
ordinance.
side of your residence, so therefore, you really are complying to our ordinance.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right, we're gonna, yes.
I'll try to be quick. Peggy Wood, and I'm speaking for my daughter, well, both of them. Brandy is at 40698, and that lot was a long time ago divided, and so she has no access to Oleander, so she can't put her trash back there. So then she can't put it out on 98 because they won't pick it up on 98 because there's only one trash can on the, because everybody else puts theirs in the back. So I have to go haul her garbage to my dumpster. And also, they said they can't get the garbage truck all the way down, 29th Street, and so they don't pick up at Sean's t-shirt shop. So I go around and pick up everybody's garbage and put it in my dumpster. So if you could figure out some way that they could put their garbage out, I would appreciate it.
Well, I think you're gonna be busy.
And he's gonna bring it all to us.
I suggest, I like what Nick said, that we simply, that this table, that we let people register those oddball situations.
Unusual situations.
I don't know, Don't slap the table again, please. Scared the hell out of me.
I woke some people up.
All right, so anyway, I think that, are y'all comfortable that we just look at
Yes.
those and take,
Yes.
and instead of putting that all on Mel, putting that all on Philip?
I agree.
If there's oddball deals, exceptions, call them what you want to.
Variance.
Let us, you know,
Give it some thought.
do the background work. Let
And then they-
somebody
and
present,
then they-
and
and then
just
they
present it.
present them to the
and-
council.
And we'll have to follow the is that,
The only thing I'm not sure of, what is our fee involved? Is it expensive? 'Cause we
Fee?
generally- Yeah.
no, we don't want a fee.
You talking about a lawyer's fee or our fee? What fee?
There's usually a fee for all your
Lawyer's fee.
applications. I don't know if it's $10 or $200.
For what?
Well, variance is a few $100s.
That's the issue.
Yeah, well, I was more thinking of it that,
Common sense.
I mean, some horse sense of that we can't just let Mel present, they'll say, this week or this month, here's 2, he puts it in our packet, we look at it, we see what they're doing, and just handle it without the full procedure of a variance.
Why don't we
I mean, he made
Why
a
don't we
decision.
revise our fee schedule so that this type of variance doesn't have a fee, but still get the normal kind of information we want for a variance?
No,
I
we
don't think
want to do it,
collect-
we want to do it like that. We want, once it comes here, I mean, it's.
We've
trash,
never
it's
done
trash
anything
can.
like that.
Well, we should.
I agree.
We should. Can we not expedite, I mean, think of it, he made a decision, and that's what's there. Why couldn't we make a decision?
I'm not familiar with what we require for our variances, what's on the form, how long the form is. I mean, what are we talking? Is it 2 pages or 10 pages?
It's only a page.
It's a
But-
page.
But you also have to notify all the neighbors so they can come to a public hearing to have their say.
Okay. That's a big deal.
Well, that's what we've done now. We've got neighbors here, we're doing quasi judicial hearing right now. I mean, that's what's happened over a decision. And so now we're faced with how do we deal with those exceptions? We want with those.
Can't we just call it a sanitation concern? Because I think that that's probably what we're looking at, rather than all the variances, just a sanitation concern. This can't be followed by your ordinance. Can we do this? Could it ever be that simple?
If your trash ordinance says that you can bring special considerations to the council to consider, it'd probably be that simple. But if it doesn't say that, our mechanism is a variance,
Okay.
which we
Well,
have
then we
some
need it
procedures
to
for.
say that.
Okay.
We need that ordinance to have that clause, because I don't want it to be a mountain. It doesn't need to be a mountain. In my opinion, it should be, and if we have disagreement, that's just part of what happens when you govern. I mean, you're not gonna, but at least it comes to this table. Could you look at what would be needed to add to that sanitation ordinance where there is a simple council, I guess, a hearing or whatever for the council to make exceptions?
Mountains are against the code.
What?
Mountains are against the code.
Is that, I don't want to speak for everybody, isn't that what we're trying to do?
I think
That's
the only
fine,
thing
and
I
no
would say
charge,
is.
and no charge for this.
Yeah, we don't want to charge.
I agree.
Yeah.
You
I agree. I agree.
Some kind of simple form that's consistent.
All right, how about, let's look, what's your input? Are you-
We were looking for some direction from the council to give us some flexibility,
all right,
and you just did.
Is that a good avenue to go?
Right.
Nick, you got that?
I got it.
Okay, so at the next meeting, and then we can address those issues even if they are ones that are outstanding. Okay? I mean,
Okay.
when I say outstanding, the ones that we've talked about tonight. Good? Everybody good?
We're happy.
This is not a trash discussion. We're still gonna pick up everybody's trash.
Not a new ordinance.
All right. Can we leave, did you have more?
I
Or did you
but
forget
didn't
it by
wait.
now?
I am good, Your Honor.
You're good. Okay, we're gonna move on. And thank everyone for their input and their civility in this issue. Next on the agenda, first reading ordinance 697. Do I have a motion to read by title only?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any opposition to reading? Mr. Clerk?
Ordinance number 697, an ordinance of the City of Mexico Beach, Florida, defining special events and associated terms, requiring a permit to hold a special event, requiring a permit fee, establishing an application process and process for approval and denial, requiring insurance and indemnification to protect the city, requiring prepayment of the cost for city personnel and equipment, making violations punishable as misdemeanors, repealing ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict, providing for codification, and providing an immediately effective date.
Okay. That will move for our next Tuesday night meeting for second reading. Also on the agenda is the first reading of ordinance 698. Do I have a motion to read by title only?
So moved. Second.
Excuse me? I didn't hear you. Absolutely. I apologize. Yeah. Come on.
Bobby Pollock, 215 Kim Cove. Y'all know I'm really big into special events. I've worked my butt off for many years for it. I'm worried about what's going to happen with special events. And doing something like this, I'm worried about stuff like people come to the beach to get married. They may not have 2 years or 2 months or whatever time it takes to ask permission to get this done. If you go, and if I heard what I read, you have to get permission from people in the area that you're going to be doing this in to be able to do it. So when we do the fireworks, so we got to get permission to everybody on the beach. When we do the gumbo, we got to get permission to everybody around 98.
Excuse me. Did you read 98.3?
No, I have not read the whole thing.
Okay.
Will you read it too?
Can I answer your question? Let me read it to you.
Yeah, please.
Not required. Special events permit is not required for the following: funeral and weddings, parades involving fewer than 30 people, special events sponsored in whole by the City of Mexico Beach, and gatherings of 30 people
Fewer.
in the city park. I mean, so I think if I'm following you, that what you're discussing, there is no.
Well, for special events, that's good. If I wanted to have some at Sunset Park with my family of 30 people, 31 people, I got to do it 2 months in advance. Is that true? I have to have, if it's not permitted by the city, to have $1 million insurance policy.
Mayor, would you like to?
Yeah, come on.
So on that exception, it's actually funerals and wedding processions. If you want it to be funerals and weddings, period, we can do that. I'm not making any strong recommendations in this, so we can change things, but that would be all the vehicles
You're
riding
right.
out afterwards.
Processions, and I missed that.
Now, for
correct.
a beach wedding, they wouldn't all need permits. That would go back to the special event definition. So if it's on a beach that the city doesn't own, it's a privately owned beach, and it's not going to be so large that it's going to impact the public's ability to go up and down the beach.
Well, we've never had one that has.
Mel and actually were talking about that before the meeting. That's not going to be a special event. If it's on the public owned beach, it would be, because it's on public property. But if it's in an area that's not part of the public beach, then as long as it's relatively small, it wouldn't be.
We permit weddings already. We have been since I've been here. So there is already a wedding permit that happens.
But it's not this.
kind of ask why this is being done.
Because if you don't have some orderly fashion and calendar that establishes where a wedding's going to be, you could have two people schedule a wedding at the same location. And so when you get a permit from us, which is at no charge, you establish where that location's going to be. And that way, if someone else comes along, wants to have the same location, we can say, I'm sorry, you can't, you gotta move it to another venue.
We've done that as long as I can been here, and a lot longer, we've done the same thing. So why are we doing this now?
Well, I think we're also beginning to get interest from organizations that really would like to do large events that would take in our services.
Address that. Don't address, stop the hall citizens being able to do things. Address that one problem. Don't have the citizens tied up and everything else. It's getting ridiculous. I'm sorry.
I could probably make another comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
The size threshold of the events on this, we copied in other cities. And if you want a higher threshold, that's not hard to do. We just need your direction.
Well, we went through this, if y'all recall, and there were concerns at the time it was done. It wasn't I don't think it was all unanimous, so I guess,
And didn't we give them the go-ahead to write up
we
after all?
did.
We did.
We've given him the go-ahead to write up a lot of things, and we've changed it. So, this isn't a new, but this is a first reading. It's not something, we have 30 days to make, I don't want us, when you say we have had a wedding permit, that thing didn't even resemble this 10 page.
One sheet.
Yes. I don't want us to curtail the types of things that make us who we are. I don't want people to feel like they can't, that they're being burdened with a document and a fee and start changing who we are simply to have some fancy permit. Now that was my concern. I've voiced that back. But that's just my personal feelings. If y'all are comfortable that we move forward with what we have in here, I think Bobby made a good point about we just keep this. I like things to be simple, and if we do have somebody that wants to come in, but I don't want us to run people away.
What about having?
Another suggestion.
Yeah.
I already exempted the events at the Civic Center because we already had a process in place that was working. We could just do the same thing with the wedding permit. I wasn't familiar with that, but we could exclude that because we already have a process.
Yeah.
We'll just keep using the process we've got for that. Does that create a problem for you, Mel? Are you?
No.
I think that, Mel talked about an organization wanting to do something super big in November, October of this year. I don't know if it's still, so we do have to have something on paper for them to follow that we're comfortable. So if more and more organizations, or if this happens, this big deal that they're planning, if that happens, then the word will get out that Mexico Beach is a great place and let's do our event there. We're gonna have to be prepared so that we're not flying off the seat of our pants to get something ready when they're waiting for an answer. And we've been doing the wedding permit, that's been working for years, so continue that.
And as far as the form, can we make a small event form, application form versus a large event? That's still, that's within line to our proposed ordinance?
Or why just worry about the large event and not worry about the small events,
Well,
period?
you'd have to move it up to a size in there instead of 30 and kick it up.
My only concern is that the city is not liable for lawsuits or whatever. Other than that, it's worked pretty good over the past. And I don't think, we haven't been hit with any lawsuits. I don't know where we could get hit by a lawsuit. Somebody's having a party on the beach.
So can we just take out that, I mean, I'm comfortable with just eliminating the wedding and continue just using the wedding permit. That's worked. It's been easy, it's been comfortable, there's no fee, and it's user-friendly, and then continue with this the way we've agreed on it
Yeah, and
last time.
That's a small enough change, we can just do that in
Do
between
that.
first and second readings.
Now, we have a tendency to take something simple and make it more complex, and then wonder why we made it more complex, and we turn around and make it simple again. So let's just make it simple from the very beginning, if we can.
Here's a picture.
All right, so we're gonna just make, that won't
That change.
preclude, that won't make us need to reread. That's a very,
No, that's just.
okay, the only other thing then, and Nick mentioned it, do we want to increase from 30 to 50? I mean,
think
if we look
50's
at, we got 30 here, so we need a permit.
I think 50 would be great.
I'm just,
I have no problem with
yeah,
50.
I don't know. 50,
50 is fine.
Yeah.
does that make us have to read it again?
No, and it says gathering of 30 or fewer people in a city park. Do you want it to be any public space or just city park? Because, I mean, city park is a
Well,
handful of
doesn't it
places.
mention 30, it involves 30 up here marching along a parade route, it mentions 30 in other places than that. If I'm not, if our memory serves me right. Let's just make it,
Make it 50 everywhere.
yeah.
What I was getting
Good.
at wasn't the number of people, that was the
I
location.
saw a hand and, yes, come on. Yeah, I don't know how many, it seems like there's several places that that's mentioned.
All right, I'm looking.
Okay.
Lisa Logan, 402 Maryland. When you have weddings on the beach, at what point do you control what goes on? And I'm all for weddings on the beach, don't have a problem with 30, maybe not even 50 people, but my question stems from this. Very recently, I took a picture on the beach of a wedding that was held at one of the houses. They had 100 people. They built a stage for musicians out on the beach. They erected 2 giant speaker towers. Nothing was done. They partied for the entire weekend. So at what point do you control things like that? They weren't supposed to have that equipment out there in the first place. 100 people, and it was on one of the dead-end streets down there, and I've been talking to the neighbors because they wanted to find out what could be done because their street was completely congested. The noise went on till midnight, and there doesn't seem to be any way to stop this type of activity. So when you have events, including weddings, how do you control something like that?
They didn't call the police?
I was told that they did call the police. By the time the police got out there, most of the people had already gone. It was around midnight.
What time did they call the police, you know?
I have conflicting reports, so I do not really know. But I do have a picture of the stage and the speaker towers out there, which should not have been out there. So, you know, this is just something to consider. Great for weddings, but you got to cap it somewhere, somehow.
Or let the rest of us know when the party's happening again.
She's pointing out a good distinction, though. To me, wedding means the ceremony. It doesn't mean all the party.
Exactly.
We'll clarify that.
Yeah, and that's part of what the police, I mean, they would have responded, or, if, you know, that would be something someone would call about.
I mean,
The wedding
if
may have been
it,
the cause of it, but there's still other things on the books to take care of.
those people are too noisy, you know, my next door neighbor can get noisy, I call the police.
Okay,
You don't need an ordinance for that.
so I think the wedding thing we're gonna do, we're gonna increase the thing, the quantity, 30 to 50. Sure. And we'll still put that on the agenda. You good with that, Nick?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Next is first reading of ordinance 698. Do we have a motion to read by title only?
So moved.
Second.
Any opposition? Thank you. Move on.
What's the title only?
Yeah. It's first reading.
Ordinance number 698, An ordinance of the City of Mexico Beach, Florida, requesting and consenting to the inclusion of all of Mexico Beach within a municipal service benefit unit designated by Bay County to provide fire rescue services, providing for annual renewal of such request and consent, providing for severability, and providing an effective date.
Now, Mel, is this the ordinance that we're going to put on for next meeting? Help me, you discussed something, I've lost, it left me.
In order to accomplish Bay County taking over our fire rescue services, we have to pass an ordinance. And so this is the first reading. At our next meeting in 2 weeks, it will be the second reading and be final.
Okay.
In the meantime, Bay County has to pass something of their own. They have their public hearing a week from this morning,
Yeah, the 19th.
which we'll attend to make, to ask any questions.
I'll just
they might
raise
have.
that because our protocol has been a 30-day, but this is one of those deals where we need to move forward. So we're gonna put it on our Tuesday morning meeting in 2 weeks.
There is a July 1 deadline, so that's why we're
Yeah.
speeding it up.
We good with that?
And we clarified it in every bit of detail to make sure that it wasn't a flexible deadline. It's right in the statute. It's July 1.
Okay. All right. Any questions on ordinance 698? All right, next is the second reading of ordinance, excuse me, 696. Do I have a motion to read?
So moved. Second.
By title only? We have a motion and a second. Is there any opposition to reading? Please do so.
Ordinance number 696, an ordinance of the City of Mexico Beach, Florida, adopting the Mexico Beach City Code of Ordinances as supplemented through April 2018, providing rules of interpretation in the event of conflict with an ordinance, providing for codification, and providing an immediately effective date.
Is there a motion for adoption?
So moved. Second.
Motion second. Any comments? Yes, ma'am.
Sandy Yarborough, 66 Azalea Drive. And I hate to be a blonde, but I have no idea what that meant that you just read. So could you
Yes,
tell me
we'll
about
help
it
you out there.
in English, please?
All right. They'll put that.
Thank you.
Give us a clarification on that codification.
Here it is, right there in the book.
Oh, I know.
There it is.
We have a display. Go ahead.
I'll start from way back when. Every time the city council passes an ordinance, it goes into an ordinance book. And so whenever we had a question about whether there's a certain issue out there, we have to go to each individual ordinance. What you can see, ordinance number 696, we have to look through 696 ordinances to find something. So what we do, we hire a firm to come in, and they have a staff of attorneys. They take each of our ordinances and put them in one handy book. Every time we change an ordinance, once a year, we update the code book, which Nick held up here a moment ago. And that way, when we want to find an issue out there, we can look at it and not spend a whole lot of time. Along with this comes an online version of our code, so we can search particular items, and it makes it much easier for the public, and it makes it much easier for us.
Good job. The intent is not to change any of the ordinances, it's just to put them in order so that.
That's right. Organize us. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Did we get a motion for adoption?
We need to
Yeah,
vote.
the second
All right,
bit.
call the roll, please.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Ms. Albrecht?
Yes.
Mayor Kathy?
Yes.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Putnell?
Yes.
All right, next is Resolution 2018-05. Have a motion to read by title only.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any opposition to reading? Please do so.
Resolution 2018-05, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Mexico Beach, Florida, regarding final plat approval for Ocean View subdivision and providing for an effective date.
Is there any discussion? Any clarification, Mel? Anything you need to add?
Yes, sir, I do.
Go right ahead.
We did a camera review of some sewer lines in this subdivision on Friday.
Y'all through? Okay.
And when we did, we found numerous instances where a sewer line was collapsed, had dirt in it, had obstructions in it, had water holding in it. And none of those items should be in any sewer line. If we were to pass this resolution tonight, the city would be responsible for fixing those problems between the main and the cleanouts. I don't think that's appropriate. So what I would recommend to the city council is to go ahead and approve this resolution, but do it contingent upon the city staff being satisfied that those lines have been repaired correctly. In addition to that, the $500 fee for the camera services, because we don't have a camera of our own, the additional review should be borne by the developer, not by the city.
Shouldn't the first 500 been by the developer as well?
That's not normally the case.
I know, but it
Because
sounds,
that's our way of making sure that everything is compliance. Most communities have their own camera, so it shouldn't have been $500, but.
I know, but we wouldn't have been doing this if it had not been for their request. So they're requesting us
They paid
to,
for that now.
they paid 500,
Well, they paid a tremendous fee.
They paid it for-
25% extra, right, down the road.
What,
They paid
This is
subdivision,
Ocean View.
yeah,
yeah,
subdivision application.
Still think they should have paid $500.
what
Well,
is
this-
the reason we would want to go ahead and really approve it tonight instead of waiting until it's actually completed and you guys certified instead of approving it? And okay. Question is, what's the benefit for us to approve it tonight versus really waiting until you give us the go-ahead that all of the pipes and so forth are really in the condition that we as a city would accept them?
This is out of respect for the developer who's been trying to get this thing shored up the past couple of months and finally got it to this point. So rather than having him have to wait to the next city council meeting, which might be a couple of weeks away, we felt that we would go ahead and get the council to approve this contingent upon that. Because when it comes to what's in the subdivision, which is on the screen, we have no problems. It was built according to spec. The only issue is those particular lines are in bad shape.
Well, then that means it's not ready.
I agree with you, Bill. I don't think we should give them the approval contingent on. I think they need to do what they need to do, pay for the extra camera, check it out. Once they're all done and clean and up to our likings, then give them the approval.
I mean, we have a meeting every 2 weeks.
Correct.
Dick, what, do you have just a moment, do you have any input on contingent upon?
We could, I understand it's a fairly minor repair. If you wanted to do an approval contingent on having those items
Are they scheduled?
corrected. I mean, here's what happens. Here's a copy of the plat. It's got signature lines for everybody here. It needs to be recorded after it's signed by everybody. So we just wouldn't sign it and record it until this is done. But it doesn't bother me whatsoever if we wait 2 weeks or a month. That's fine. Well, the way this would happen frequently, if there's work that's not done, you'd get a construction bond or some kind of other security to make sure it gets done. But normally that's between the preliminary and the final plat stage. So if the work is minor enough, it would be okay to approve it contingent on this repair. But I don't know how extensive the work is.
Well,
It
look,
may
I
be
have a
better.
question, legal thing. Can they close on those properties without that being recorded?
No, they can't sell the individual lots
That's what I
until
thought.
this is signed or
So-
recorded. That's the whole purpose. of
So are you confident, Will, that the repairs are, I mean, is this something they can do in a day or two?
It's probably going to take more than a couple of days. It's a matter of getting the contractor back, getting them scheduled and everything. So I can't.
But, so by us not signing, waiting on, I mean, so we wouldn't sign, you wouldn't present those for our signature until things are done.
Correct.
And they can't close on the property until that's recorded, till the plat is recorded.
That is correct.
All right, well then, for me, I'm okay, because there's nothing other than that we're showing a good faith effort that we're willing to accept what they said they were gonna do, other than a couple lines.
And I would suggest, a lot of cities do this as a public hearing. Our rules are not very clear. But if Mel could just give a little overview of what the subdivision is, what the preliminary approval was, what's happened in between, if anything's really changed since the preliminary approval, just to kind of complete the record.
Okay, we're good with that.
You can see by the resolution that way back in March of 2017, the preliminary plat and development order was given to the Planning and Zoning Commission as well as the City Council, and they were approved at that time. Since that preliminary plat was approved, the actual construction of this hasn't changed, but in just minor areas. And so that's why we have Chris Forehand of Panhandle Engineering review this. They made sure that what was actually built was what was planned from the preliminary plat. So there's been very few minor changes from that time.
Okay. So, Chair will recommend, we'll entertain a motion to read. We did that, right? I've already, help me, where are
You're
you?
looking for a motion to adopt.
To adopt, that's right.
The motion to adopt contingent on.
Yeah, that would be part of the motion.
Utility.
The utility lines being repaired up to staff based on the information that we've just been shared or been given to us. Is there a motion to adopt? Okay,
Well, I'll make a motion because I'm always told it's nice to make a motion so that we have it solved and then we can move on one way or the other. We can all vote no, we can vote yes, whatever. So I'll make a motion that it's approved based on the contingent that all of the sewer lines are corrected with the developers paying the cost of the camera.
that makes sense? Okay,
Second.
we have a second? Have any further discussion? Everybody got the motion? I mean, there's no any, that was well done? Okay, any questions? Call the roll?
Mr. McLaughlin?
No.
Ms. Albrecht?
No.
Mayor Kathy?
Yes.
Mr. Wallace?
No.
Mr. Putnam?
Yes.
Well, that was fun.
Fail.
Did you do a good job of that?
Well,
Okay, I mean-
every time Mel says it's nice when you make a motion with its votes yes or no, just to settle it and then move on, so.
That's
We'll
what
bring it
we're-
back after repairs are complete.
That's right.
Okay.
Come back, we'll try it again. Here we go. All right, moving on, fire radios.
Yes, sir. This was a budgeted item. The reason I'm bringing it before you is it's over $8,000. It's state contract pricing on buying 2 more portable radios and some accessories we needed. Just so you know, the history is these are the new upgradable radios for the system that's coming September 2019. At this point, we have not bought any. We received 6 initially on a grant with 3 vehicle radios, and then the volunteer organization purchased 2 more. The idea is to get 2 more so that our volunteers that live close can respond to calls. Like I said, we budgeted $14,000 for this. It came in at just over $12,000, and it's 2 radios and accessories on state contract pricing.
Do we need a motion for that?
Absolutely.
So moved. I move we
Second.
accept it, period.
All right, we have a motion to accept the,
Second.
we need to put the amount in, please, Jerry, for you.
$12,173.62.
Yes, sir.
You second?
Second.
Rex, I guess.
Yeah,
Have a motion, second, any discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yes.
Ms. Albrecht?
Yes.
Mayor Kathy?
Yes.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Putnam?
Yes.
Nick, you're on the agenda.
Sure. My update's brief because we're still waiting to hear back from the state. I've requested Attorney General's opinion on an issue relating to our accessory structure rental question. Basically, the issue is that there is a preemption under state law if someone's issued a vacation rental license. And if they're issued that license, we can't really regulate their short-term rentals. So what we're asking the state is whether these little units that aren't actually dwelling units or something less than a dwelling unit, if they're going to be eligible and going to get those licenses from the state if we allow people to start sleeping in them. Because if the state's going to do that, then it changes some of our options, and we just need to think through what we want to do. Because basically allowing people to sleep in that unit would make it so that pretty much we're going to be able to rent them if they go get that license from the state.
So we're just on hold.
We're on hold. It was probably 3 weeks ago that I sent the request in. I got a response, very brief. They received it. They asked one follow-up question, and they're thinking.
All right, let's see, where are we?
Miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous. Anybody have any besides me?
I do, but,
Go ahead.
all right. We have a new business in town, and we all like to have new businesses. It's a positive thing. And as we talk about following ordinances, I just want to make sure that the new business has gone through the ranks of what they have to do in terms of a permit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what I've been told at this point, it has not, we have not received a permit, and I know the city, from what I've been told, is working on the situation. So I'm just concerned, and we have ordinances, and everybody needs to follow the ordinances. So,
Working on the situation.
We'll take that one.
You okay?
The city attorney the past couple of days and I have been working on a letter for that particular business at hand. So when we get that crafted, hopefully tomorrow, we can get that sent to the proper people.
now, is that normal? I mean, if they haven't a permit, is it a normal that we would contact our lawyer and say, you have to, help us draft a letter? Or can we just go in and say, you don't have a permit, we need to close you down until you follow our rules and regs? Once that is done, we have no problem. So would it always be a lawyer involved?
Normally, the answer is no, but in this case, it's requested by the person at hand to not contact him, but contact his attorney.
Okay, all right.
Oh, really?
The really straightforward issue is apply for, submit the application, get it done in
Yeah.
order. That part's simple. We're trying to think through what comes after that. It's
Okay.
a little trickier.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
No, that was it.
Anybody besides me? Okay. I have two things, quickly. What is the procedure? Who do people call to report fish carcasses in the canal? Or do we call the police? If someone is dumping or putting fish remains in the canal, is that who we call?
Because that's a violation of our ordinances, that's who ultimately has to write the ticket, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct, yes.
Oh, the state guy doesn't do that? I
We would
saw-
notify FWC also.
Yeah, I
Because
saw
a lot
him
of
say-
times FWC isn't around the area.
They can write a ticket, can't
They
they?
can also write a
So
citation.
we would call officer on duty number.
Yes, so we would call dispatch, and dispatch would in turn send an officer out there.
FWC was there yesterday, I saw them watching the app.
I've just, well, the officer on duty line is, a lot of times it's important that we try to respond as quickly as possible. And I realize that they have higher things or more important things potentially going on.
Every call is a priority call, within reason. However, if it's not documented correctly and dispatched through dispatch, we have no chronological history of receiving a call. Calling the city patrol phone was once upon a time supposed to be for the city purposes, but it has become a landline that the general public calls. We have a pending case right now that we cannot document how the officer received the information in regard to a burglary. So every call has to go through Bay County Dispatch.
I can attest that I back pocket dialed 911 one time, and guys were at my house real quickly.
Well, how do you go through dispatch?
The number that we put out, that's also posted on our door, that was also put out several meetings ago, versus calling the patrol officer on a city phone,
you call the Bay County Dispatch.
I have the number, it's 784-4000.
And that's going to be the direct number to the dispatchers. And that's just like reporting a fire or whomever, an emergency.
But is dispatch gonna think of that as,
It doesn't matter what the call is. We've had a call about a yellow duck on the beach, sir.
what's that number? 784?
Yes, 4,000. And that's your non-emergency number, you still call 911 for phone.
Because that officer on duty number is also listed, I mean, it's around town.
Yes, sir, and I've asked multiple times that that be changed. In fact, I'm gonna come up with some magnets that we're gonna start passing out to the community for the purposes of contacting the department. Because when you call a patrol phone, going back to the yellow duck incident, where a citizen complained that the officer did not respond to their requested call. And when we went back and located the reason the officer did not respond, the officer was physically doing CPR and utilizing an AED on a citizen that was having a legitimate heart attack. So unless
Yeah,
it's
but I mean, that's-
recorded,
So will your magnets put out the number 784-4000? Is
Yes,
that
it
what
will.
you're gonna do?
yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay,
And it was also supposed to be changed on the city webpage. I had requested that also.
And maybe your patrol, if you're getting too many calls on the patrol number, maybe we can just change that phone number.
Well, I had spoken with the carrier of our city phones.
Yeah.
And once I get the ultimate approval that I've requested multiple times for safety reasons, that the Verizon carrier will roll over that number straight to dispatch.
Okay.
So the phone itself will still be a functional phone, the
Okay.
number's still gonna be, so if the citizen
But it will
still
just-
calls it, right, because it's become an ingrained number, that was not the purpose of the number.
Okay.
They're literally stepping aside the purpose of our dispatch that we utilize for the purpose of tracking calls, and it's totally gone away with. It's just like with the fire department. You know, they've gone to calling their patrol phone where they don't get the credit that they should get for the officer responding to the calls. Everything's documented for a reason.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna ask something. I was sitting on the beach, I think it was a Saturday, and I look at this truck coming down the road, and it's I call them game wardens, whatever, he's in his silver truck, and he's weaving in and out. Kids have to move their toys for him to go through, especially 27th Street, it's real narrow. I just wonder, are there that many people breaking fishing laws that they have to ride down the beach? It just seems like that people don't fish with the right bait. They're not catching stuff. I just don't understand. And I've seen them, they
they've
come
been
down
there
on
more this year than I've ever seen.
four-wheelers and everything, and
I
I
don't
feel
know.
sorry for people that are sitting there fishing and they're driving down there, and that's some of the ruts too. I mean, they're literally in a big pickup truck.
I know,
driving down the
like
beach.
I say, I've seen them more
State
this year.
people?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Can we
FWC.
keep them off the beach? Can we try to keep them off?
You can. No, my
don't
dealings,
want to do
my dealings with them, I can only speak just from years.
Doesn't work.
Well, I mean, they're FWC, that's what they do. I don't know.
Could we ask them to be careful the next 60 days, or,
To use a different vehicle than the big truck.
geez? Are those the people that are making the tracks?
Maybe.
So,
Maybe, okay.
All right, I've got one last thing, and I hate that I didn't get it on the agenda, but it happened today. So I have been in contact with the work camp up at Howard's Creek. This was discussed several months ago, back during our budget, I guess it was now a year ago, about getting a work crew for the city of Mexico Beach. And the last contact I had with our public works director was that there was, I don't remember how it was said, but it was like nothing was working out. Well, they have a new warden. I've contacted some people up there, and we have the potential to do that. And I think that we need to explore that possibility with the amount of workload that keeping our city clean. And what I'm gonna make this very brief, because I haven't read this. They sent me a sample contract
that is used with Bay County. I have 2 contact numbers, people here that I have spoken to, but the warden has blessed us, and that's the way it was described to me. Nothing happens until and we had some issues there before, but the new warden wants to try to help us get a work crew. What I would suggest, ma'am, we'll give this to you, and in our next Tuesday meeting is to do some due diligence and do some sort of, I guess we call evaluation of what this contract is, a sample of what they would expect from us. It's got the numbers and all in it. It's got how they operate. Plus you've got contacts here. And come back to us with what, I guess obviously the money would be an issue, the pros and cons, the image of our city with having a work crew that had been discussed with me. These are, I know very little because I just got the word this afternoon. These people are screened. It comes with an officer, and they're here. They work 4-10s Monday through Thursday, and they work at our schedule. And I think we all realize that times are changing. That's been sort of a theme tonight. And we can't keep up with what we're doing with the people we have, and people are expensive. So I would like that to be an agenda item for our next 2-week meeting. But it'll have to come from you. I just got you the information together, and then we'll have an opportunity to discuss what's available to us. Okay, fair enough. That's all. All right, any other miscellaneous?
I don't have any.
Motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Thank
We
you,
got a
everyone.
hand
Oh,
up.
sorry. Come on. Come on, it's late. Stay where you are. Come on, speak.
I'm just going to bring to attention that the public hearing next Tuesday night, the Bay County Commissioners pertaining to the fire protection.
Not here, it's in Bay County now.
No, no, that's in
Okay.
Bay County.
But it's not next Tuesday night. They meet at 9. I'm assuming that this is a 9 o'clock meeting.
9 a.m.
I was just going by what the paper said, that there's going to be a public meeting pertaining to the fire protection.
Yes.
On Mexico Beach. It's something that I proposed back in February that was deemed non-negotiable at that time. Anyway, I hope that people will show up at that meeting and voice their opinion, that they want Bay County to give us a little help.
Right.
It is 9 a.m. Make sure.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
9 a.m.
9 a.m. Thank you, Vic. 9 a.m.
9 a.m. next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday at the Government Center.
It's on 11th Street.
Right there on 11th Street.
We're done.
Adjournment, motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank everyone for coming. Good job, Chief.